Hi, first graders. This is Mrs. Szewc, and I am here to read a very, very special book to you. So when you see a book like this, actually, let me really show you. Something like this, a book that's falling apart, it's been taped, stapled. Look, it's ripping in the corner. Looks like there's a stain there. You might think to yourself, oh my goodness, this book is awful. Who would want to read this? But there are some other people, like me, that look at a book like this and think, wow, that book must be a really good book. It's been opened so many times, it's falling apart. There's a special story with this book. You see, if you can look up here, you can see this is actually my maiden name, my name before I got married. Okay, because I have had this book since 1982. Yeah, 1982 is when I was in first grade myself. And a few years ago, I got out this book out of my October box, like I always do, and I had a student teacher. And she said, oh my goodness, that author's Elizabeth Levy. Elizabeth Levy is my mother's friend. I bet if you write her a note, she would send you a new copy of the book. And guess what? She did. So this is the message that I wrote to Elizabeth Levy. It says, Dear Miss Levy, I have adored your book, Something Queer at the Haunted School, since I first opened it as a first grader in 1982. Now, as a first grade teacher, I enjoy reading your book every October. Our elementary school is so fantastic, but luckily not haunted. My copy of your wonderful book has been taped, glued, and stapled, but most of all, well loved. After 30 years, yikes, I love it just as much as I did when I first read it. When I share my favorite reading memories with my class, I always tell them I would love to show you my well-loved copy, just so that you know how much it really means to me. If you ever find yourself in West Seneca, New York, please stop by and see me. My classroom door at the time was room 102, which is where Mrs. Kaus is this year. I'm now in room 111. But I told her it is always open. I promise no werewolves. And guess what she wrote back? She wrote, Dear Jennifer, because that's my name, what a great email. I would love to send you a new copy. Just send me your address. And yes, I grew up in Buffalo. So if I come back in the spring, I'll let you know. Thanks and cheers and happy Halloween. Elizabeth Levy. So the author wrote me back. And she actually gave me a new copy of the book. Although I just remembered that it's on my shelf at school. But what I have for you is this amazing book that is one of my favorites. It is a Halloween mystery. So I thought that this would be a perfect book for us to read, first grade detectives. So I just want to explain the cover. It says Something Queer at the Haunted School. Okay, and the word queer in this story means something unusual is happening at the haunted school. So let's take a look. First of all, these two girls are squeezing together in this one desk because they look very frightened. They have a very worried look on their face. Their knees look like they might be shaking together. And I wonder why. It looks like a monster hand is holding the eraser for the chalkboard. There's a scary jack-o'-lantern. When I look on the title page, I also see a werewolf at the top of the stairs. Instead of the moon, I see a jack-o'-lantern again. And there's this silly dog dressed up like Dracula. And there are these glasses. Wonder what those are for. Maybe that's a clue. Okay, so good readers always take a sneak peek before they begin reading. And here's something interesting. This book was brand new in 1982 when I got it. And I can tell you, I know that I ordered this book from my weekly reader book club when I was in first grade. And the description of this book says that 2 amateur detectives investigate a haunting of their school that starts around Halloween. And the genre is mystery and detective stories. So take a look. Got a dog, and it looks like they're drawing some costumes for the dog. It's like a firefighter maybe, or a pirate, a snake, a clown. Oop, here's all the costumes maybe they're imagining for the dog. Okay, here they are. It looks like maybe they're at the school because I see the chalkboard behind them. Okay, some interesting parts down here. And then they look a little scared. The dog jumped off the table. The scissors are flying through the air. And look at the teacher. She looks a little frightened as well. The next day, the kids are pointing. On the chalkboard appears werewolf power. The flag is upside down. Some noises from the speaker. Some strange lights during the play. Looks like the news came to interview this man. So now they're in the library. Looks like they've been looking at a lot of books. They look scared again. Shaking knees. They open the dark classroom door. No one there. Walking home. Okay, that same man that did the meeting with the newspaper, maybe. Okay, nighttime. Oh, slamming the book and everybody jumps. I wonder, maybe she had an idea. Oh, now here's a book, The Haunted Laundromat. It's kind of empty. There's a man. Oh no, look at that face. It's kind of like, oh no. Even the dog hides. But now they're talking. Looks like she's thinking. Halloween party. Oh, they're all dressed like vampires. Okay, looks like the teacher's getting something out of this drawer. The blueprints are like the map of the school. And it looks like they are noticing a staircase. They're all pointing to those stairs. That must be important. Okay, here's the party. Oh, they're going up those stairs. And what do they find? Now, because this book is a mystery, I'm not going to do any more of the picture walk because I don't want to spoil the surprise. So now I'm going to begin reading. Okay, something queer at the haunted school. Now we're going to check our sneak peek as we go along, and I'm going to give a thumbs up if what's happening on the page sounded like what we just talked about, okay? Gwen and Jill were planning their Halloween costumes. What do you think Fletcher would want to be for Halloween? Asked Jill. There were so many possibilities. Fletcher Snail, Fletcher Whale, Fletcher Roller Disco Star, Fletcher Parakeet, Fletcher Fire Hydrant, Fletcher Lion, Fletcher Snake, Fletcher Shark, Fletcher Giraffe, Fletcher Ghost, Fletcher Vampire. I've got it, a vampire, exclaimed Jill. Fletcher wagged his tail. Fletcher hated to move, but he actually got up and licked Jill's face. He must really want to be a vampire, said Gwen. So if it just said lick Jill's face, now you know this is Jill. This is Gwen. The next day after school, Gwen and Jill got permission from their art teacher, Mrs. Willoughby, to stay late and make Fletcher's costume. She let them bring Fletcher so they could be sure his costume fit. Then she left them alone to go to her studio. So it says Fletcher's vampire costume. The bat wings are made out of cardboard and painted black. They're sewn onto a black cape with a bright red lining. We also had a red bow tie. His whiskers are curled and his fangs are drawn on with a red makeup pencil. But he likes to lick them off. Yeah! Suddenly, Gwen and Jill heard a blood-curdling scream. Fletcher jumped into the air and right into Gwen and Jill's arms. Miss Willoughby ran into the art room screaming, "Why did you sneak up behind me pretending to be a ghost? Why did you make that weird howling noise?" "We haven't left the room," protested Gwen. Miss Willoughby looked like she didn't believe them. The next day in class, when Mr. Murdoch, Gwen and Jill's history teacher, went to erase the blackboard, the whole class screamed. The words werewolf power appeared as if written by a ghostly hand. Mr. Murdoch dropped the eraser. All that week, a ghost seemed to be haunting the school. At first, everyone thought a child was doing it, but no child could hang all the flags upside down every morning, make weird howling noises come out of the public address system or the speaker, cause strange glowing lights to dance across the stage during a class play. Soon, newspaper and TV reporters came to investigate the strange hauntings. Mr. Murdoch went out to talk to them. "I have been doing some research," he said. "Nearly 100 years ago, a young woman stood here, the very site on which this school was built. People believe she turned herself into a werewolf." "A werewolf?" cried Jill. "Can you believe it?" "No," said Gwen. "Meet me in the library." Later in the day, Jill found Gwen up to her ears in books about hauntings, werewolves, and Halloween. "What are you doing?" asked Jill. "Research," answered Gwen. "I don't believe in ghosts or werewolves. I think something strange is going on." Gwen tapped her braces. She always tapped her braces whenever something strange was going on. So we were right. She's doing some research. "Everyone thinks something strange is going on," said Jill. "But I don't think it's the supernatural kind of strange," said Gwen with a tap. Tap, tap, tap. Suddenly, from within the wall next to Gwen came an answering ghostly sound. Tap, tap, tap. Gwen's knees began to shake. Gwen and Jill ran to the room next door, but it was empty. It looked as if no person could make those taps. "Now do you believe in ghosts?" cried Jill. "I don't know what to believe," said Gwen. "I think we should tell Mr. Murdoch what happened," said Jill. Mr. Murdoch had left school for the day. Gwen and Jill picked up Fletcher at Jill's house and walked him to Mr. Murdoch's house. Mr. Murdoch had 2 names by his bell, Murdoch and Ross. "I thought Mr. Murdoch was a bachelor," said Gwen. "That means lives alone." "Don't be nosy," said Jill. So she noticed there's 2 names. She's thinking, "Oh, I thought he lived alone." Mr. Murdoch was surprised to see them. He had a set of blueprints on his desk, which he put into a drawer. "Just looking at the plans for my dream house," he said. "What can I do for you?" So remember, blueprints are like a big map of the school. Gwen explained about the mysterious tapping in the library. Mr. Murdoch was very excited by her news. "Oh, historically, ghosts communicate by taps. I'm going to look into these tappings very closely." As they left Mr. Murdoch's house, Jill was so scared she thought she saw ghostly werewolves behind every tree. There's got to be an explanation, said Gwen. Someone wants us to think the school is haunted. Or maybe it really is haunted, said Jill. The next day, Gwen and Jill went back to the library. Gwen was sure she had missed something. Suddenly, she slammed one of the books down on the table and started tapping her braces. This time, no answering tap. Look at this, said Gwen, showing Jill The Haunted Laundromat by Veronica Ross. It was written before we were born, but it's about a laundromat nearby. It's the only other local haunting I've read about. I think we should investigate. After school, Gwen, Jill, and Fletcher took off for the laundromat across town. The laundromat looked haunted. It was shabby and full of cobwebs. A bell rang as they opened the door. An old man came out of the back room. Do you girls have laundry? He asked hopefully. Gwen shook her head no. Is this the laundromat that's supposed to be haunted? She asked. Oh, no! Screamed the man so loudly that he scared Fletcher, who started to shake. I thought after 10 years everyone had forgotten. Forgotten what? Asked Gwen. About that horrible book, said the man. His voice was so loud, his wife came running from the back. Be careful, Sam. Remember your heart. Whoop, sorry, guys. Remember your heart. That book ruined our lives, said the man. Our laundromat was never haunted. Somebody made it up. We never met that woman, Veronica Ross, the author. Ross, whispered Gwen. I thought it sounded familiar. Gwen began to tap her braces. Why is she doing that? Asked the man. She's thinking. Friends, I'm going to tell you this is clue number 1. Why does the name Ross sound familiar? Where did you see that name before? Finally, Halloween arrived. The school was holding a big party, and everyone in town wanted to come to see what horrible, spooky things the ghost would do. So there's the flag upside down. Gwen and Jill went up to the art room to put the final touches on their costumes. They had made themselves vampire costumes, too. Miss Willoughby admired their work. I like the way you made a plan for you before you began, almost like a blueprint. So they have their costumes labeled. Okay, just like what they said they were going to do for Fletcher. A blueprint. I bet there's a clue in the blueprint, said Gwen. Miss Willoughby, can you get us blueprints of the school? It's important. Huh. It just so happened the blueprints, remember that's a map of the school, are stored in the art department because we have the long files for them. I have a set in the bottom drawer. Gwen and Jill studied the blueprints. These stairs aren't here today, said Jill, pointing to some lines on the blueprints. Oh, those are the old fire stairs, said Miss Willoughby. They were closed when we built the annex. That's like the extra part. But the stairs open onto the roof right near the little room that I used for my art studio. Excellent, said Gwen with a tap on her fang. Someone howled from these stairs. The stairs go right by the library, said Jill. They could tap on the library wall or howl. I bet we can catch that someone tonight, said Gwen. She whispered her plan to Miss Willoughby and Jill. Miss Willoughby dressed up as a Major League Baseball player for the Halloween party. She carried a bat. In the middle of the party, Gwen and Jill went up to her. It's time, whispered Gwen. Miss Willoughby nodded. She took Gwen, Jill, and Fletcher, all dressed as vampires, up to the school roof. However, Gwen was the one vampire who carried a flashlight. Suddenly, they heard a spooky howling sound. Is that Fletcher? Asked Jill. Gwen looked at Fletcher. It wasn't him. It's not Fletcher. Come on. Gwen opened the door to a secret stairwell. Something huge and scary jumped out at them. Yikes! Shouted Jill. A werewolf! All right, boys and girls, we're going to find out the rest of the mystery. A human werewolf, shouted Gwen. Don't let it get away. Miss Willoughby waved her baseball bat at the creature. It growled and leaped back down the stairs. After it, shouted Gwen. They chased the creature back down the stairs and into the party. Many people had come dressed as werewolves, and for a moment Gwen and Jill lost the creature in the crowd. Boys and girls, can you find him? If you look closely, there are some little red dots to tell you where he went. There's also someone dressed in a costume that points. There it is, yelled Jill, spotting the creature's big feet near the stage. Gwen and Jill chased it all around the party and finally cornered it right in the middle of the stage. Take off your werewolf costume, you fake! Jill reached over and tore the werewolf head off the cowering form. It was Mr. Murdoch. Miss Willoughby went to the microphone. Gwen and Jill have exposed the werewolf ghost, she said as her voice boomed out over the speaker. The school is not haunted. How many of you thought it was Mr. Murdoch? Kiss your brain. There was a big clue. Let's see if you found it. Okay. So if you look at the picture, here's the Haunted Laundromat book. Do you remember the author was Veronica Ross? And when they went to Murdoch's house, the word Ross was there. Mrs. Willoughby handed the microphone to Gwen, who blushed. Mr. Murdoch glared. My research has paid off, said Gwen. 10 years ago, under the name Veronica Ross, Mr. Murdoch wrote a book, The Haunted Laundromat. He made it all up. The laundromat was never haunted. Jill and I saw the name Ross on Mr. Murdoch's doorbell. We figured out he was writing a new book, The Haunted School. I needed the money to buy my dream house. I wanted to write another bestseller, he said. You scared people, said Jill. You used the old stairwell to create ghostly sounds. You even hid a piece of chalk inside the eraser to write werewolf power, said Gwen. I'll see that you get fired, said the principal. Someday I'd like to come back and haunt you, hissed Mr. Murdoch to Gwen. Luckily, I don't believe in ghosts or werewolves, said Gwen. Ow! Suddenly, everyone heard a faint, mysterious howling. The room grew quiet. Gwen and Jill looked down at Fletcher. He was howling in his sleep. Gwen and Jill patted him on the head. Fletcher rolled over and seemed to smile. His nightmare was over. Boys and girls, I love mystery books. This is such a well-loved book, and it's so special to me. I hope that you really enjoyed this story. There is no haunted school, as you can see, but sometimes people can play tricks. I think the reason why I love this book is because I also love Scooby-Doo and Winnie the Pooh, right? Another mystery is history. Also, someday you'll enjoy Nate the Great. He is also another great detective. And very soon you will be word detectives yourself. Happy Halloween.